can't express how sorry I am towards Manti and his family.
Netflix's Untold, The Girlfriend Who Didn't Exist, investigates the online relationship and unexpected controversy that sent footballer Manti T'eo's life and career spiraling in 2012. It will feature never-before-seen interviews with Manti T'eo and those involved. Manti T'eo was an up-and-coming star college football player at the legendary and prestigious Notre Dame, with dreams and aspirations of joining the NFL. Now back in 2012, this young football star was messaged on Facebook by an LA-based woman named Lene Kakua, who struck up a friendship with Manti that blossomed into a pretty deep online relationship. The relationship never actually progressed to an in-person meeting though, as Lene would come up with an excuse whenever Manti would push to meet up. However, the pair still continued to date and would talk on the phone. But at some point in the relationship, Manti would learn that Lene was involved in a horrible car crash that left her with serious injuries, which would pile on top of Manti learning through Lene's family a little later that Lene has been diagnosed with leukemia and then passed away from cancer not too long afterwards. The loss of his online girlfriend also happened to fall on the same day as his grandmother's passing, as The loss of his online girlfriend also happened to fall on the same day as his grandmother's passing as well. In his own words, Manti said, quote, "I just broke," when he heard the news. With his girlfriend and grandmother both passing away, he dedicated himself to his upcoming season in honor of the loss he had suffered, going on to absolutely kill it on the field. Manti led Notre Dame to the national championship game and earned so much respect and notoriety for his story of persevering through tragedy. But the notoriety he received seemed to unveil a twist that most people, including Manti himself, were not expecting. Two reporters at Deadspin, Tim Burke and Jack Dickey, when reporting the story of Manti and his success, received an anonymous tip and investigated into who Lene Kakua was, and could not find anything outside of stories about T'eo. It was as if she did not exist at all other than with T'eo, which raised a lot of questions. Once the reporters had discovered the truth though, they published a tell-all article revealing to the world that Lene Kakua was in fact a fictional character. Lene was actually created by one of T'eo's childhood friends, a man named Renea Tuasesopo, who set up the profile to catfish T'eo into a relationship after falling in love with him. Manti had supposedly learned of the hoax not too much long after the death of his not-real girlfriend, but even after telling the school all about it, both he and the school did not speak about it for a while, and understandably so, as it did not go well when he did. But how did this all come to be? Manti became Facebook friends with Tuasesopo, who was playing the part of Lene Kakua, pretending to be a made-up cousin of Tuasesopo. The catfisher even explained, quote, "You bring in whatever characters to maintain the validity of this whole persona. I even made myself Lene's cousin." The real woman whose pictures were used to create Lene, Diane O'Meara, was even contacted by Tuasesopo, who asked her to pose for specific photos holding up a sign to prove to Manti T'eo that she was real. But Tuasesopo told her the photos were for a sick friend of theirs. Tuasesopo says that they grew up where, quote, "Everything was centered around faith, family, and football. Their father played for USC, an uncle was on the Rams, and older cousins played for the 49ers and the Raiders. It was part of the family, which Nea, born a boy, struggled with. During their sophomore year in high school, they were a starting quarterback, but despite this, they said, quote, "I hate football. I just wanted to play football out of obedience, and I wanted to make my dad happy." Now they say in the documentary regarding her actions, quote, "I created this fictional character. I totally felt fear. I didn't have courage to just be like, this is who I am. I didn't expect it to blow up so quickly." She continued on to say, "It was a black hole that consumed my life and I didn't care who I was hurting." End quote. It still doesn't really explain catfishing a guy, starting a relationship, and then faking a death though, really, does it? Not really. Especially considering the revelation of the scandal raised a whole lot of questions and even a few accusations, with some news outlets claiming that Manti had organized the whole thing to give himself an inspiring backstory and advance his career forward. Other media outlets even suggested that Manti had orchestrated the whole controversy to cover up the fact that he was gay, which it wasn't true. One sports broadcast broadcaster, Alex Flanagan, said, quote, "I think one of the first questions everybody asked was, how could he be so naive? And then the second question everybody started wondering was he complicit?" But of course, the college football star had no idea, truly believing that Lene was a real person who had really passed away, meaning, yes, he was really heartbroken by the loss, and the realization of the hoax likely made it worse, with Manti even telling ABC News, quote, "To realize that I was the victim of what was apparently someone's sick joke and constant lies was, and is, painful and humiliating." This media controversy and backlash had a big effect on Manti, both personally and professionally. He said, quote, "It was just a huge tidal wave and I was drowning. You can't feel anything, taste anything, smell anything, nothing." This was all at a time when Manti was waiting to hear if he had achieved his NFL dreams and been drafted. And likely, thanks to the scandal surrounding him at the time, his stock fell in the NFL draft and he was not picked on the first draft, something that shocked most US sports journalists at the time. Even his agent told him he would, quote, "get picked, it's just a matter of where and when." Unfortunately, he wasn't entirely wrong, as Manti went on to play for the San Diego Chargers in the second round of the 2013 draft, going on to have a journeyman career with San Diego, New Orleans, and the Bears. Currently, he's a free agent, no longer connected to a team. With the years of jokes, cartoons, memes, and social media bullying, Te'o's experienced numbing anxiety and had to go on to find help through therapy. Speaking about that period of his life, he said it was a time that left him anxious and numb, and he sought help to, quote, "rediscover who I was." During an ESPN interview, he did admit that, quote, "In retrospect, I obviously should have been much more cautious. If anything good comes from this, I hope it is that others will be far more guarded when they engage with people online than I was," end quote. After the hoax, he has gone on to have a successful football career, and in 2020 got engaged to his eventual actual real girlfriend, for reals this time, Jovi Nicole Angbino, a personal trainer, beauty consultant, and social media influencer. The pair are married, and now, proving she's really real, the two share a daughter together. So, good job, man. As for Tua Sissoko, they did a confessional interview with Dr. Phil back when the controversy broke, no doubt bringing the NFL stock for Te'o down even further. And eventually they moved to American Samoa and eventually transitioned, and now identifies as a transgender woman. Naya says she isn't proud or happy with what she did, saying, quote, "I still feel horrible, but I learned so much about who I am today because of the lessons I learned through the life of Lene." So, hey, she manipulated a football star, putting him through the trauma of losing a girlfriend the same day as his grandmother and almost cost him his NFL career, but she knows who she is now. She continues to say, quote, "After this whole life with Lene had ended, I couldn't give Lene any more of my time. And I remember telling myself, you want to be a girl, so be a girl. Honestly, we all make mistakes and do things we can't explain, especially when we are at a vulnerable point in our lives." Both Te'o and Tua Sissoko will be appearing in the documentary episode by directors Ryan Duffy and Tony Vanku. Untold, The Girlfriend Who Didn't Exist is available to stream from 16th of August, which is today, unless you're in the future.
Because, you know, I always like to have a big wad of money in my pocket to hit the casinos, to golf with, you know.
Tim Donaghy is a former professional basketball referee who worked in the National Basketball Association for 13 seasons from 1994 to 2007. But this would come to an end when it was revealed that Tim was actually betting on and making a ton of money from the games he was refereeing. This is all featured in the Netflix episode Untold, Operation Flagrant Foul. Refereeing is a physically demanding and high-stress job, but it is definitely a good job to have, money-wise. Even rookie referees in 2007 could make 6 figures, which makes me want to change careers, to be perfectly honest. And then, when it's off-season, you basically just get to chill the whole time, which makes you wonder why anyone would put the job at risk. Before joining the NBA, Donaghy worked as a referee for high school basketball games and for the minor league CBA. Blessed with the right connections, and after 4 years officiating in the CBA, he was called up to the majors in 1994. He was 27 years old at the time. Now, during his career in the NBA, Donaghy officiated in 772 regular season games and 20 playoff games. And through that time, he gained respect among his fellow refs. In 1998, Donaghy joined a country club in Westchester, Pennsylvania called Radley Run. At the club, he made a pretty tight circle of golfing friends. They played 18 holes 4 or 5 days a week, usually while also drinking and gambling. which happened usually at the Borgata, a casino in Atlantic City. In the casino, Donaghy wore a baseball cap to keep a low profile from the cameras because the NBA forbade any gambling by its refs except for horse racing randomly. And if he was caught, that was his career done. Now inside this group of golfing buds, Donaghy's closest friend was a man named Jack Concannon. The two had known each other since high school, and Concannon, like a lot of people in the group, had a bookie, Peter Ruggieri, who also golfed frequently with Donaghy and Concannon's crew. In October 2002, Donaghy and Concannon decided to put their money together and bet on Ruggieri's picks. Then at some point in 2003, Donaghy and Concannon were sitting alone at the Radley Clubhouse after a round of golf when they decided to bet on the NBA, which obviously Donaghy had inside knowledge of. So obviously Donaghy made some winning picks which came across as super easy for him. But it wasn't just random NBA games. The first bet they decided to place was on a March 2003 game that Donaghy himself was refereeing. Once they realized how easy it was for Donaghy to make picks, the betting increased from just 2 to 3 games the first month, all the way up to 30 to 40 games the next season. But things had begun to change. Donaghy was also placing his bets with his best friend, Tommy Martino, another close high school friend, who came into contact with Jimmy Battista, who worked as an underground bet broker providing services to sports bettors, laying down wagers on their clients' behalves with bookmakers of various types around the world, legal and not legal, working with a group of others called the Animals. He also had heavy connections to the mob and the Gambino crime family. He noticed the bets placed by Donaghy's friends, and when he split with the Animals, he decided to pursue them to find out how they were choosing their picks. Battista met with Martino and Donaghy, all of whom had gone to the same high school in the Catholic neighborhoods of Delaware County, just outside of Philadelphia, and they agreed to work together. Now Donaghy claims he was threatened by Battista into working with him since Donaghy knew of Battista's reputation and didn't want to be caught. But Battista denies this, and no one else knew of any threats. In the Netflix documentary, the three talk about each other. Donaghy said, quote, "Tommy was one of those guys all the girls loved. Athletic, funny, good-looking kid that everybody liked." It then has Battista saying, quote, "He had good street smarts, always easygoing. You wanted to be around Donaghy." And then Martino then says, quote, "Battista and Donaghy were not friends. They were acquaintances. I was friends with Jimmy. I was friends with Timmy. I was their link. All three of us went to Cardinal O'Hara High School together. Tim was hilarious. He was the prankster. He was the guy pulling the fire alarm. But Jimmy was a God-fearing church-going boy just like we were, and his family was very strict with him, and maybe that's why he rebelled a little bit and got mixed up with them guys. Jimmy, Timmy, and Tommy. Do you see why I refer to them by their last names now? Good grief. Okay, so how did the three arrange this gambling scheme? Well, I'll tell you. Donaghy would supply his picks for the game he was officiating to Martino through a burner phone using code words for home team or away team. Martino would then supply this information to Battista. Battista and Donaghy would never come into direct contact, with Martino even bringing Donaghy the money they earned from their bets. Battista cut a pretty good deal for Donaghy, which was that every time his pick would win, he would get 2 dimes, which is code for $2,000. If his pick was wrong, Battista would take the hit with no loss for Donaghy, referred to as a free roll. But honestly, Donaghy was rarely ever wrong. He was right about his picks about 88% of the time, which is an insane percentage in the world of betting for a long period of time. Battista was positioned well enough in that world that based on Donaghy's picks, he'd helped set up a kind of loose, disorderly hedge fund. Several people from the sports betting underworld had staked Battista a bankroll which he was using to bet on games officiated by Donaghy. In total, according to a source, he hoped to get down about $1 million of his investors' money in each of Donaghy's games. Several years after starting in the NBA, Donaghy, who clearly had a gambling problem, began placing bets on the 2005 to 2006 and 2006 to 2007 seasons, taking in so much money that he couldn't even figure out where to stash it to hide it from his wife, Kim. Now, Kim and Tim met each other when she was working as a flight attendant, and Tim chatted her up on a flight he also took. And they began dating and got married not too long after, and they have 4 children together. Today, though, Tim Donaghy lives in Sarasota, Florida, where she and her then husband and 4 daughters moved to in 2005. Kim filed for divorce in late 2007, a few months after the scandal became public. She has made it clear in other interviews that the two's divorce was a long time coming, saying, quote, "Tim was very, very secretive. He was always locked in a room on the phone." Now, in the Netflix documentary, she describes a time that she had picked up his official NBA jacket to put it in the wash and found, quote, "a huge wad of $100 bills rolled in a rubber band, hidden away in his pocket." With her thumbs and forefingers, she made an O about the size of an orange. That's big. She has stated that she probably started finding the cash in around 2004 during the season. At the time, she told herself the money was from golf course betting, but she would keep finding such rolls in his pockets as the years went on. She has also said that she never counted the money and never confronted him about its existence as she was afraid. Now, Phil Scala had been investigating organized crime in New York City for almost 30 years. Each of New York's 5 families had a dedicated FBI unit investigating it full time, and Scala was in charge of the one focused on the Gambinos. It was 2006 when his squad received a tip. One of the family's snitches had given Scala a new tip that an NBA referee was in the pocket of people in the sports gambling underworld. The informant didn't know any names, and the people with the ref in their pocket did not appear to be made members of the Gambino crime family, but the information of which sides of which games the ref favored had been seeping into the black market gambling business. And a crew of Gambino thugs in the Canarsie section of Brooklyn had figured out the formula and was winning millions on this ref's games. A few days after Bautista checked out of rehab, FBI special agents Paul Harris and Gerard Conrad knocked on the first time on Bautista's door. They knew all about what he'd done. On June 21st, Scala, Harris, and their boss, special agent in charge Kevin Hallinan, went to the NBA offices in Midtown Manhattan and sat down with Commissioner David Stern and 3 other league executives. And the agents informed Stern that it had come to their attention that Tim Donaghy had been betting on his own games and giving inside information to a gambling ring. Now, on August 15, 2007, Donaghy pleaded guilty to 2 federal charges, including betting and wire fraud. He was sentenced to 15 months in federal prison on July 29, 2008. He served 11 months in a federal prison camp in Pensacola, Florida, and the remainder of his sentence in a halfway house, but he was sent back to prison in August for violating his release terms. After serving his sentence, he was released on November 4, 2009. Donaghy was ordered to pay a $500,000 fine plus restitution to the NBA. While he was in prison, Donaghy was attacked and required surgery on his knee, an attack he blamed on the New York Mafia. Donaghy was also arrested again in December 2017 for aggravated assault, but he was released on a $5,000 bond, and he has not been rearrested since. Tommy Martino, on the other hand, pleaded guilty to wire fraud and got a 1.5-year sentence, while Jimmy Bautista pleaded guilty to illegal gambling. Soon after Donaghy's release, he published a book called Personal Foul, a first-person account of the scandal that rocked the NBA in December 2009. He also sued the publisher of his memoir because they had not paid him, and he was awarded $1.3 million for that. Also, in 2021, he even made his debut as a professional wrestling referee for Major League Wrestling, using his infamy to his advantage. The investigation into Donaghy wasn't just about gambling. It also brought heat onto the NBA itself, as it was claimed that some referees were pressured to manipulate games in such a way that would benefit the NBA. The NBA conducted its own investigation and concluded that Donaghy in fact did not fix games, but for many in and around the league, suspicions have remained that the full story has not been told. In the Netflix documentary, Donaghy states the different ways refs work within the rules against certain players, and about how star players would have their fouls and penalties not called in order to keep them in the game. He even told the FBI about the ways other refs would fix games and was to be their inside guy in that operation until the whole story was leaked to the press. There was tons of speculation of fixing games in order for Donaghy's picks to win. Even Bautista assumed this was the case. Batista never used the word fix or influence or manipulate, but according to him, quote, there wasn't a need to. The whole thing had been insinuated. He said, quote, the only mechanics he had in his hand, he had the whistle. Since the scandal and his time incarcerated, Donaghy has appeared in 2 documentaries about the scandal: Dirty Games, The Dark Side of Sports, and as mentioned, the Netflix feature Untold Operation Flagrant Foul, which was released on Netflix on the 30th of August and is available to stream right now. The documentary features interviews with Tim Donaghy, Tommy Martino, and Jimmy Batista, as well as FBI agent Phil Scala, Donaghy's lawyer John Lauro, Donaghy's ex-wife Kim Strupp Donaghy, and more. The documentary is 77 minutes long and follows Donaghy from the start of his career to his disgrace and to his arrest.